my name is Bethany Fong. I am a UX designer for Google. I've been working there for 9 years now. I live in California, and I studied product design as an undergrad at Stanford. Well, typical is different now that we're all working from home, but in terms of the substance of my job, I am a design manager and a UX lead for this team called Material Design at Google. And we are a design systems team. Design systems are like the Lego pieces that make up UIs for websites, for apps, for any sort of digital experience. So if you've noticed, if you've used Google products and you've noticed that, hey, they all kind of resemble each other, and there's a shared language of usability, and there's always that round button where I can make something new. That's the design system. So we provide kind of the building blocks of usability and work with the product teams to evolve it from there to make it suitable for their users and their use case. So right now, I'm leading a team of about 10, and we are the systems team. We design everything, all the pieces, all the components that make up the design system. A typical day for me, well, it looks like a lot of meetings because I'm at the point in my career where I'm managing, so I'm always trying to communicate, communicate what leadership is saying to my team, or communicate my team's opinions to leadership, trying to work with my peers. I'm partnered with a product manager, an engineering manager, and a PGM, or a program manager. And together, we all are kind of like the co-leads of the entire group, which is cross-functional. And there's a lot of time syncing, sharing ideas, talking about potential partnerships that we can make across Google or externally third parties in order to further the reach of our design system, as well as innovate in the right ways, in interesting directions. And oftentimes we find innovations come through partnerships with different groups. A large part of my day is also one-on-ones with my team members. I really like being a manager, which is kind of weird to say because I think I'm a wee bit young to be managing so much already. But for me, it's just about caring for people, like making sure that their interests are represented at the larger group level, that they're hitting the career goals that they want to hit, and just getting to find projects for them that are really exciting for them creatively. I can go into all the different categories of meetings that I'm in. But the blessed few that I still get to do design or brainstorms in are always my favorite, where it's Post-it notes on the wall, whiteboards, sketching, getting to put on my conceptual hat and use long words and sound really smart, but talking very substantively about design and what we want the future of UIs to look like. Yeah. So growing up, I loved making things. You name a craft, I did it. I have tried everything. And my father's an architect, and my mom is a self-taught web designer. And so I was surrounded, without even knowing it, of all these books and resources and ideas about making things and changing your built environment, changing the world around you. And so when I entered into Stanford, I thought I was going to be a bio major at first because I didn't know design was really a thing, which is funny given my parents' occupations. I grew up in a really small town in California called Mariposa, very rural. It's right outside of Yosemite National Park. And, as you can imagine, the educational opportunities and what people do is somewhat limited. And certainly, UX design is not a thing in Mariposa at all. So I loved my science classes. I loved biology. I loved particularly the complexity of the taxonomies that I saw in biology. Spoiler alert, still applies to my job. And so I thought, okay, cool. I'll be a bio major. I'll see what that is. I took a couple of classes, really disliked them. I thought, okay, hum bio. I'll insert the human element too. It was okay. And so I have this distinct memory of, I think, winter of, I want to say my freshman year, maybe sophomore year, going through the Stanford catalog and reading the course descriptions for each of the majors. And I realized I was reading through the product design course descriptions that every single class appealed to me. There was something that was deeply resonant about learning aesthetics, learning art history, learning how to make things, getting to be in the lab. It was really exciting to me. And so I guess somewhat impulsively, I just changed my major when I got back to campus after that winter break. And so I just think it's interesting that I kind of migrated from this, pure science to science, hard science, soft science to, hard science. Engineering is hard science, but adding this human and aesthetic element to it. And yeah, did not regret making that impulsive decision. I think the thing I love most about engineering is getting to create something from nothing. You get to expand people's horizons about what the world can be or what the world can do, what they can do. And I think engineering enables others to do more and be more than what they would expect. So from a digital perspective, what I really love about design systems is it allows somewhat novice engineers and developers out there to make a pretty usable app without thinking too much about it. It would be a lot if you just put a blank piece of paper in front of, a CS major and said, make an app. And then hope that it's usable by the full audience that they wanted. But a design system is a really good starting point. And so, we see huge companies use it, like Google, obviously, but it's also really gratifying to see teeny tiny little dev shops use the work that we do, and get their unique cultural voice or unique perspective on the market out there. So it's definitely not straightforward. And I did not have any super fancy internships or anything. During college, my summers were actually, there was one graphic design internship, which was not really graphic design. I was making a newsletter for a nonprofit. And then my other summers were actually doing social justice initiatives along with my Christian fellowship on campus. And actually, that was amazing for building leadership skills and being able to communicate and being able to care for people. So I do not regret that at all. But yeah, I did not have any shiny product design thing on my resume when I graduated. And I graduated in 2008, which was right when the Great Recession hit. So there should be some resonance with your audience and in terms of current times. And so I had to, after I graduated, I had to work 3 jobs to pay the rent. I worked at Anthropology as a sales girl, and I was pretty good at it, actually. I made some people very happy with the wardrobe choices that they were getting. I also worked as a child socialization person for this group called Abilities United, which helps people with disabilities be in the community, be productive, get more support. And that was really interesting to me. I pursued that deliberately because I tried to focus my product design degree on people with disabilities when I was at Stanford. So the projects that I would choose to take on or the electives would be around learning about people with disabilities. It's just kind of been a lifelong interest of mine, just like socially as well as creatively. I see so much interesting potential in understanding the world from an accessibility perspective. So those are two jobs. And then the third job is I was finally able to land a design internship with SK Telecom, which is a big Korean group, working on, I'd say like an early Fitbit competitor. And it was just so nice to be able to get like one solid design thing on my resume because I could use that as a jumping off point for other jobs. Actually, I taught myself digital design because product design at that point, 2008, which sounds like a long time ago, but really wasn't. It's all mechanical engineering, right? It was learning about how to create physical jobs. And, like my capstone project was creating a bag that would hook onto a wheelchair that would allow a user to kind of be more independent in their life. But at the same time, like I was making logos for the dorm t-shirt. I was helping out my classmates with their mini startups that were getting off the ground that would eventually sell to Yahoo for absurd amounts of money. And I was just reading nonstop on like Smashing Magazine and all these websites that were focusing on design because it was just another facet of design that was really interesting to me. And I had a computer, I had Photoshop, I had Illustrator, and I could just start experimenting with digital design. I should also mention, I think a really big milestone when I was at Stanford in terms of kind of leading me in the right direction was I got to take the class Design Your Life by Dave Evans and Bill Burnett when it was still in prototype mode, way before the book was written and everything. And that was fantastic just to have these earnest conversations with my classmates and these men who are super accomplished in their field. And it gave me the courage to, I think, pursue design authentically, like treat it as a worthwhile challenge and really a lifelong pursuit. And if it didn't fit, that would be fine. But I think it really established a tone of fearlessness within our cohort about just dive in all the way, try it. And, you can always iterate away from it if it doesn't work. So that really stuck with me, and it still sticks with me now. See, after SK Telecom, I worked for a startup for a little less than a year. And then I joined Google in June of 2011. Started on an Internet of Things group within Android, which is defunct now, but that's fine. Android TV, I helped bring the Android OS to a new form factor, a new platform. I was really heavily involved in accessibility. So again, that focused on people with disabilities. Like I wrote the first article for the Android dev site around how to make your app accessible. And this is just me, like, I don't know anything. I was doing the research as I went, like asking engineers what the best practices were. But I got to write the article, and as a result became like a local de facto expert, which happens a lot at Google. Like you do the work to learn it, and all of a sudden people are like, hey, give me advice about everything. And then I joined the material design team in 2013 and helped launch the first version of Material. As a junior designer, I got to design and create all of the individual components. So the small actions, anything tappable, anything that makes something happen on screen, which is pretty nuts given that, again, not a formal like digital HCI background, but just a passion for the field. And that like one person would be given so much to do. I mean, it's a very scrappy project. And material design ended up being a really huge success and kind of redefined the field of design systems for some time. And so since then, I've continued to grow in that group and grow in my role. So most recently, I helped lead the Google redesign. So if you've noticed a brand refresh over the last couple of years where everything got a little bit more white space, a little brighter, typefaces feel more googly, actions pop more. That was all from my team. And so I helped lead that across Google. So I can say now that I've redesigned Google twice, which very few people can say. I'm going to do a very, I don't know, annoying Stanford-y thing, but uh, success. What do you mean by success? Like, I am successful by some measures. Certainly, I think influence, my salary is pretty great. But I think with engineering and design, there is always more to create and learn. Like, you never just solve the problem once and for all. Technology changes, people change, you learn more. And so there's always just more interesting problems to pursue. Um, I think my biggest hurdle towards, I guess, me feeling like I am successful or feeling satisfied in my role is probably imposter syndrome. So never feeling like I know enough. Um, I think, there's always like gatekeepers in every role, but I would love to know more about like art history or the history of graphic design, or taking more art classes in college, or even having gone to a design school. There's just a lot of knowledge about sometimes somewhat esoteric design things that I wish I had. And I think when you combine that with being a minority in the tech world, being a woman of color, oftentimes being the only woman of color in the meetings that I'm in or leading even, there's just a lot more considerations on my mind about the social hurdles I have to go through, or the way that I'm signaling things, or how I'm coming across, or how I'm representing my team, which is actually quite diverse, which I'm proud of. And I've also faced some outward discrimination too. But with that, I think you just have to keep going forward and choose your battles. Not every stupid little comment is worth, stopping your work for. But I think with imposter syndrome, I've started to overcome it. Definitely haven't solved it, by reminding myself that I'm a practicing designer. I'm not a designer. And the difference is that if I am a designer, that's very kind of identity based. Like, this is me, this is who I am, this is a label that cannot be torn away from me. But if I say I'm a practicing designer, it means I'm practicing how to be a designer. Like, I'm learning, I'm growing every day. And when you practice, it's okay to mess up. And it's okay to acknowledge that you don't know things. So I try and bring that mentality with me, because I will eventually learn all of those esoteric things, hopefully. But I don't have to fake that I already know them. I think curiosity and love for wicked problems, being able and willing to tackle big questions. Um, and there's a poet named Rainer Maria Rilke, which I'm totally butchering the pronunciation, but he wrote these letters of recommendation to people who are also trying to be poets and writers and authors. And one of his pieces of advice was to live the questions now. So if you have big questions about how the world's supposed to work, or what to make, or just who am I supposed to be in this life, like, you can live them out. You don't have to just turn and turn and turn, and then all of a sudden you're, in your old age, and you're like, oh, I never really did anything about it. And so I think, for me personally, like I said, I'm really dedicated to people with disabilities and the design challenges in that field. And following that thread has basically led me through my whole career. Like, I've learned so much about the full Android software stack by learning about, and accessibility challenges. It's taught me so much about the legal challenges around accessibility. There's so much interesting work that's being done in the field. So it's connected me to, professors and authors and researchers who are, at the forefront of it. And that's just because I had this question and this curiosity for that one area. So that's actually something I try and advise my reports on doing, or just people who ask me for advice, is what is the one big question that you have, or what is the problem that you could pursue through any medium, because it might actually lead you to interesting places. No warning. I mean, I think the challenges that will face engineering in the future will be their own challenges, right? Like, the challenges that my mom faced back in the day are different than the ones that I face, will be different than the ones, 10 years from now. But I think, so words of encouragement, I think engineering is a great way to shape the future that you want for yourself, for your children. If you want to say into how the future is made, like how it looks, how it works, what it tastes like, how you get there, what you use to express yourself, the tools that you even use to envision the future, engineering makes all those things happen. And yeah, I think it's a really good way to insert your voice, your unique voice, into the dialogue in a very concrete way. This is secondary, smaller advice. But I think you should also not be afraid to make it a goal to find a place, a team, and a manager where you can really thrive. Sure, there's something to be said about, fighting the good fight in a really difficult place, and, changing culture, and And, I think that's okay for people at some stages in their career, but it doesn't have to be their entire career. And it doesn't have to be, especially when you're starting out and you're trying to just understand, what is product design in a non-academic setting. I think people can deliberately seek out places they will thrive and be able to develop their practice, and then just go from there. Strengthen up as fast as possible, and don't feel like you have to be a martyr for anything, just because those are the main stories that you're reading about. I think particularly with women in engineering.